Have you ever wondered whose voice is truly guiding your life? Yours, or the echo of the world's endless opinions? In the quiet moments, when doubt creeps in and self-assurance flickers, it becomes dangerously easy to surrender your own mind to the crowd. Yet clinging to external approval can be the silent enemy of your dreams, trapping you behind invisible walls of expectation. This book offers not just understanding, but a path forward, a hand reaching through the noise to lead you back to yourself. Are you ready to break free from the tyranny of popular opinion and rediscover the power of your own truth? Silence the Crowd: How to Trust Yourself Over Popular Opinion, written and published by Mindset Liberation. Chapter 1. Hear Your Inner Voice. There is a relentless noise that pulses at the edges of modern life, a ceaseless stream of opinions, judgments, and expectations that threaten to drown out the most essential voice of all, your own. In our hyper-connected world, where external validation is just a like or comment away, finding and trusting your inner voice has become both a rare skill and a profound challenge. Studies show that more than 60% of people admit to making major life decisions, such as career changes, relationship choices, or even daily priorities, based more on external expectations than inner conviction. Psychiatrist Dr. Sherry Turkle, renowned for her work in digital culture and mental health, describes this as the silent crisis of self, where technology amplifies every whisper of doubt until our own beliefs are almost indistinguishable from the background noise. For many, this crisis begins in childhood, where the need for approval often replaces authentic self-expression. Imagine the kindergarten child who proudly creates a picture, only to wrinkle with anxiety when a teacher frowns or classmates snicker. That early twinge of shame plants deep roots, subtly teaching us that to belong, we must sometimes silence our deepest truths. By adolescence, peer approval becomes a dangerous currency. Social media platforms built to amplify popular opinion magnify this problem dramatically. One harsh comment or unfavorable comparison can twist our perception of self-worth. It is no wonder that reported anxiety and mood disorders among teens and young adults have soared over the past decade, a pattern linked closely to the pressures and noise of the digital crowd. Seemingly ordinary choices are suffused with collective expectations. A working adult might dress a certain way because of unspoken rules in the office, while suppressing questions in a meeting to avoid ridicule or conflict. In romantic relationships, partners sometimes ignore gut feelings, afraid that voicing dissent will disrupt harmony or trigger rejection. Even creative impulses, those unique sparks of curiosity and intuition, are often smothered beneath the weight of what everyone else thinks. Research conducted at Yale University suggests that when individuals feel their ideas are unpopular or unconventional, activity spikes in areas of the brain associated with social pain, the same regions activated when we are physically hurt. This biological response means that standing apart isn't just psychological, it actually feels risky at a primal level. Yet while this struggle with internal silence is almost universal, few truly recognize its cost. The relentless quest for external guidance or reassurance erodes not only self-confidence, but also our sense of purpose, leading to an unshakable sense of emptiness or drifting. Hidden beneath this surface compliance is the graveyard of unmet dreams, untaken risks, and quiet regret. The tragedy is that for all our striving to fit in, fulfillment is always just out of reach, because real contentment, real confidence can only arise when we learn to listen to and trust our own inner voice. Uncovering and honoring this hidden voice is the first, often unspoken act of liberation. It is a process that demands courage, self-awareness, and the willingness to endure discomfort as we relearn to separate society's chorus from our own unique song. In this chapter, we will walk through what it truly means to hear yourself in a world addicted to noise, a journey reserved for those who suspect there is something sacred, quiet, and true inside, waiting to be heard. The relentless suppression of your inner voice stems from a subtle betrayal, a gradual giving away of your authority to the expectations and judgments of others. This habit seeps deep into our emotional world, curdling confidence into anxiety and reducing the colors of genuine self-feeling to a grayscale wash of uncertainty. The emotional consequences are often invisible until they metastasize. moments of sharp self-doubt before speaking up in a meeting, an ache of regret after a choice made for someone else's convenience, or the gnawing emptiness at milestones that should feel triumphant yet ring hollow because they were never truly your own pursuits. A well-known study from the University of California, Berkeley, demonstrated that people who consistently defer to external expectations experience significantly more chronic stress, worry, and depressive symptoms than those who cultivate their own sense of purpose, even when faced with outside disapproval. Over time, relinquishing control over decisions chips away at self-trust, eventually turning familiar uncertainty into a permanent state of low-grade dread. These effects are amplified in our relationships. When you are disconnected from your desires and beliefs, boundaries blur and resentment festers. Consider the story of Elena, an IT professional who valued harmony so much that she rarely asserted her preferences. In her workplace and at home, she automatically acquiesced to louder voices, choosing restaurants she disliked, agreeing to unreasonable deadlines, silencing her constructive criticism for fear of disrupting the peace. On the surface, she appeared agreeable and considerate. Privately, though, Elena felt invisible, her emotional needs smothered beneath layers of politeness. Resentment simmered until it erupted in what looked like irrational outbursts to her loved ones. In truth, every uncontrolled tear and angry word were the byproducts of years spent muting her own existence. Research in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology suggests that chronic people-pleasing and avoidance of confrontation correlates with increased relational dissatisfaction, loneliness, and overall poorer mental well-being, because authentic connection requires the self to be present, heard, and valued. This chronic silencing infiltrates our decision-making. A 2014 Harvard study highlighted how frequent suppression of one's instincts to accommodate group consensus, known as groupthink, not only leads to poor choices professionally, but also robs the individual of a sense of responsibility and satisfaction. When the outcome fails, self-criticism intensifies because deep down you knew what needed to be done but abandoned that wisdom. The most haunting failures are not those born from risk, but from self-abandonment. This phenomenon erodes self-esteem in a particularly corrosive way. Each time you choose approval over authenticity, you reinforce the belief that your own guidance is unreliable or unworthy, perpetuating a cycle of doubt and dependence that grows more stubborn with time. People fall prey to this pattern because it masquerades as safety, choosing comfort, validation, and group harmony rather than risking isolation. Yet the greatest threat is not standing alone, but growing incapable of standing at all. The urgency to break this pattern cannot be overstated. The longer you ignore your inner voice, the fainter it grows, eventually leaving only the hollow approval of a crowd whose applause cannot fill you. The pain is real and pervasive, robbing us not only of our happiness, but of our very selves. Recognizing the effect is the first step. But to win back your voice, you must spot the hidden warning signs before they take root, a task the next part will help you undertake. The mental health ramifications of living divorced from your inner voice can be both quietly insidious and dramatically disruptive. This issue rarely announces itself directly. Instead, it creeps in through everyday scenarios, shaping your actions and emotions in ways you may not fully realize. The manifestations can be surprisingly varied, but at their core, they reveal a common wound, the loss of authentic self-direction. Common patterns emerge: the relentless second-guessing before making any decision, the persistent anxiety that arises around possible criticism, and the chronic feeling of emptiness, even after achieving things that were supposed to bring satisfaction. These signs often blend into the daily rhythms of modern life, yet their cumulative effect steadily drains away a person's energy and joy. Consider the story of Marcus, a talented marketing manager whose outward achievements masked an inner turmoil. Each day he carried a quiet dread into his workplace, fearing the moment his opinion would run counter to his department's consensus. When his instincts suggested a new promotional strategy, he hesitated, measuring every word according to what might gain the easiest approval. Over time, his contributions became safe but uninspired. Away from the bright lights of office meetings, Marcus lay awake questioning his every move, replaying conversations, searching in vain for evidence that he hadn't overstepped or disappointed someone. This mental tug-of-war was exhausting, and in quieter moments, it grew harder to remember what he actually valued. Parallel patterns surface in personal relationships. Take Priya, a young woman attending college overseas, far from her family's expectations and cultural norms. Eager to feel accepted among her new peers, she found herself suppressing her true opinions on everything: music tastes, career ambitions, travel plans, in favor of those that would draw the least attention or controversy. Though she was often praised as easygoing, her daily acquiescence came at a steep cost. A vague exhaustion, an inability to name her personal desires, as if every small act of self-silencing slowly erased her from her own life. In both Marcus and Priya's cases, the price of blending in is not just temporary frustration, it's a slow dissolution of identity. Recognizing these signals, though painful, is the essential first step toward healing. There is a particular power in awareness. Once patterns come into focus, you can no longer pretend they are mere coincidence. False harmony, constant people-pleasing, and the endless quest for the right answer, at the cost of what feels right, all point to wounds that need tending. By tracing these manifestations to their roots, you reclaim some measure of control, gently peeling back the layers of expectation until something real and vibrant emerges beneath. The journey begins with observation and honesty. Healing will not come from dismissing these warning flags, but from facing them directly, examining why they hold so much power and questioning whether they are worth the toll they exact. This chapter closes with the sober recognition that understanding this mental health issue is more than diagnosis. It is the first imprint of hope. By bringing these patterns into the light, you have already begun breaking their hold over your choices. From here, the path leads deeper and more practical, into the invisible habit of seeking approval and the concrete steps you can take to break free. In the next chapter, we will peel back the layers of that approval-seeking instinct, revealing practical ways to reclaim your ability to make decisions rooted in inner trust. Before moving forward, take a moment to reflect. Are there places in your life where you see these subtle warnings? As you continue this process of self-discovery, remember that the answer isn't always found in the noise. The next step, the habit of approval, awaits, promising both challenge and liberation. Chapter 2. Break the approval habit. Change begins at the precise moment you declare that you no longer need permission to own your life. For years, countless people have lived with the invisible hand of approval, guiding every decision. A habit so ingrained it often seems natural, but in reality, it is acquired and can be just as powerfully unlearned. This invisible approval habit is not a flaw of character. It's a consequence of long-standing social conditioning and quietly internalized beliefs. Psychological research suggests that as children, we seek approval instinctively as a way to build social bonds and ensure survival within our families and communities. According to Dr. Lisa Firestone, a clinical psychologist and author, this instinct, if unchecked into adulthood, can morph into chronic people-pleasing and hold us captive to everyone else's preferences. In fact, a recent survey by Psychology Today found that over 80% of adults admit to regularly sacrificing their true wishes and opinions to avoid disapproval, a staggering proof of just how universal, powerful, and deeply rooted this habit has become. It helps to remember that the approval habit is not a permanent feature of your identity. Its origins are both social and emotional, born from early moments of praise for conformity and subtle reprimand for standing out. Think back to formative years where rewards, smiles, encouragement, belonging quickly followed actions aligned with what authority figures or peer groups valued. On the flip side, missteps or deviations were often met with disapproving glances, teasing, or gentle corrections. Over time, the brain, ever attuned to social cues, learned to privilege adaptation over authenticity. The beauty, however, lies in your capacity to disrupt this repetition. Neuroscience tells us that the brain, even in adulthood, can rewire itself through conscious effort and deliberate practice, a process known as neuroplasticity. This means today's approval habit does not have to be tomorrow's story. The omnipresence of the approval habit can be seen in every facet of daily experience. Consider Jake, a capable manager with an impressive professional track record, who felt a familiar knot of tension in his stomach at every performance review. Although his team respected him and his achievements were praised, he found himself desperately searching for even the subtlest hint of criticism, sometimes real, sometimes imagined. Despite having many professional accomplishments, Jake's satisfaction would evaporate with a single negative comment. His story is echoed in countless lives, a never-ending pursuit of validation that leaves genuine accomplishments feeling fleeting or hollow. This endless search for approval does more than sap satisfaction from success. It places the well-being of your heart and mind into the hands of others, often people who can never truly understand or value the fullness of your experience. Yet recognizing the approval habit marks the critical pivot. What you have learned, you can outgrow. Each moment you pause, notice the urge to please, and turn instead inward for guidance. You hijack the old circuitry to craft a new path. The journey ahead is not defined by shame over past patterns, but by pride in every small act of courage that weakens the hold of outside judgment. Confidence does not have to wait until approval is withdrawn. It grows every time you risk honesty or assert a boundary in the face of uncertainty. This is your invitation to move from resignation to empowerment, to reclaim your voice, and to feel, perhaps for the first time, entirely at home in your own mind. The solution is possible because you are stronger and more adaptable than your earliest patterns suggest. Breaking the approval habit is profoundly effective because it directly addresses the root of self-doubt and dependence. Rather than endlessly searching for external assurance, it empowers you to find validation within. Scientific evidence from the field of social psychology underscores this transformation with compelling clarity. Dr. Kristen Neff, an expert on self-compassion and emotional resilience, has found that people who learn to acknowledge their need for approval and deliberately shift their focus inward experience measurable improvements in well-being. Her longitudinal studies show that self-approval acts as a psychological buffer. It reduces the emotional pain of rejection, increases the likelihood of authentic self-expression, and protects against the depressive symptoms associated with chronic people-pleasing. At a neurological level, mindfulness practices, techniques often paired with building self-approval, are shown to activate regions in the prefrontal cortex responsible for self-regulation and healthy decision-making, gradually rewiring patterns associated with fear and conformity. By making choice after small choice to honor your own preferences, even in seemingly minor ways, the brain begins to create new default pathways. Slowly, you become less dependent on the unpredictable tide of other people's reactions. This process is powerful because it confronts a core psychological need, the craving for belonging and safety. Historically, human beings survived by adhering to the group. The outlier was often alone and vulnerable. Biologically, the same social wiring can freeze the adult who is afraid to speak up in a meeting or pursue an unconventional dream. What makes breaking the approval habit so transformative is that it recognizes this wiring but does not bend to it. Instead, you learn to soothe the primal urge with acknowledgement and then assert the rational adult choice to act according to your deepest values. In this way, you can be both social and self-guiding, separate but connected, choosing belonging on your own terms rather than compulsively. The magnitude of this shift can best be shown in stories of lived transformation. Consider Angela, whose life for decades was shaped by the sharp edges of others' approval. In every stage, from academic choices to her role as a mother and professional, she checked herself against the anticipated reactions of family, friends, and colleagues. This constant tallying drained her, until chronic exhaustion morphed into persistent anxiety. The turning point came gradually. She began noting small instances each day where her true preference was stifled by the urge to please. At first, it was simply eating lunch where she wished, rather than following coworkers to meals she disliked. Each time she honored a quiet wish, no matter how inconsequential, it strengthened her confidence. Over time, these accumulating acts unraveled long-held patterns. According to Angela, asserting even tiny preferences felt like breathing fresh air, and I suddenly realized how many years I had survived on someone else's oxygen. As her self-approval solidified, relationships deepened. People responded to her honesty not with withdrawal, but with unexpected respect. Career decisions grew bolder, more aligned with her strengths and values. The familiar anxiety shrank. In its place, an unexpected peace took root. Creating this new habit demands urgency because every day spent outsourcing approval tightens old patterns and allows doubt to multiply. The change is not theoretical. It rewires both mind and life, fragment by fragment. Breaking the approval habit is effective not simply as a remedy, but as a lasting revolution in the way you relate to others and yourself. It is a skill that builds with practice, and with each iteration reveals how powerful and necessary your own validation can be. Transforming the urge for approval into self-directed confidence begins with tangible, small actions. Steps that, though simple, wield the power to gradually reshape a lifetime of old habits. To break the approval habit, you must start by recognizing triggers in your daily life. Begin by taking note of when you notice yourself checking for external validation. This might surface in work emails where you search for compliments, social outings where you say yes out of politeness rather than desire, or even how you style your appearance to match invisible expectations. For 3 days, jot down each moment of approval seeking in a journal. Don't judge yourself, simply notice the frequency and patterns. This tracking shines a light on behalf of awareness and almost immediately demystifies the myth that others' opinions are omnipotent. Congratulations, your first small win is in noticing these moments with clarity. After awareness, pause before responding to a trigger. This simple pause could be as short as 3 breaths or the count of 10. In that brief, intentional silence, ask yourself, would I do this if no one else would know or care? This question gently shifts the focus back to your internal compass even as the old approval habit tries to reclaim control. Sometimes you may still choose to go along with the group, but now the decision comes with self-knowledge and intention. Each time you consciously consider your response rather than slipping into automatic approval neediness, you carve out a new choice. This is not about always saying no or being rebellious, but rather practicing the art of genuine consent to your own wants or needs. Practice voicing one authentic preference each day, no matter how small. This can be as modest as picking the playlist in the car, suggesting a place for lunch, or expressing when you need a few quiet moments alone. When these acts are met with interest or even resistance, resist the urge to immediately retreat. Silently repeat to yourself, I am allowed to take up space. The goal is incremental resistance to performing for validation. Each authentic expression strengthens your sense of agency, and even in moments of discomfort, you will find yourself buoyed by a remarkable feeling of dignity. These small successes compound quickly. After only a week, you will likely notice a new ease in your interactions and a quiet pride in your ability to set your own course. For additional practice, end your day with a short reflection. Identify one instance where you acted in alignment with your genuine preference and one where you fell into approval seeking. Thank yourself for both, knowing each act, success or slip, is part of your renewal. Remind yourself that this is a journey, not a contest. The habit took years to form, and your patience with yourself is fuel for genuine change. This daily rhythm of practice, honesty, and small wins leads to deep transformation over time. Now that you are gaining distance from the tyranny of approval, your next step will be learning how to handle the discomfort that comes from unpopular or uncomfortable opinions, your own as well as those of others. Chapter 3 will guide you through that essential skill, equipping you to face divergence without fear or apology. If this chapter sparked new thoughts or breakthroughs, remember to share your experiences, suggestions, or questions below. Let's keep building the Mindset Liberation community as you venture deeper toward your most courageous, independent self. Chapter 3. Embrace uncomfortable opinions. Growth is born at the edge of comfort, in those places where your ideas clash with what's accepted, expected, or easy. Every meaningful change or breakthrough in human history was once an uncomfortable opinion. Courage is not just agreeing with the crowd, but learning to lean into the current of disagreement and thrive. Despite powerful evolutionary instincts to avoid conflict and maintain social cohesion, you possess the innate ability to tolerate difference, and even make it a source of clarity and strength. The journey to self-confidence takes a unique step here. Embracing discomfort as proof you are thinking for yourself, not as a sign you need to retreat. When you treat uncomfortable opinions, yours or others, as opportunities for growth, you actively choose authenticity over ease and progress over passivity. The roots of discomfort with different perspectives run deep. Early in life, many are conditioned to avoid friction. Family patterns teach us to keep the peace. Schools reward the quickest consensus rather than the boldest insight. Data from the Edelman Trust Barometer suggests that over 60% of people stay silent about beliefs they fear could generate conflict at work or in their community. Layer on the amplifying effect of social media, and the cost of standing out feels even more intense, magnifying even the simplest opinion into a potential crisis. But this is also where your power lies. Numerous psychological and leadership studies highlight that individuals who take thoughtful, principled stands, even in the face of disagreement, report greater life satisfaction, higher resilience, and increased success in achieving personal goals. The willingness to endure rather than escape discomfort strengthens your emotional muscle, allowing for personal wisdom to develop amid wide-ranging perspectives. Real-life examples reveal how ordinary people find strength by engaging with discomfort, not running from it. Take Samira, whose promotion at a large nonprofit meant she now chaired meetings where her proposals were sometimes met with skepticism or outright disagreement. Instead of viewing these moments as threats, Samira learned with coaching to invite contrary viewpoints and uncomfortable questions. To her surprise, the more she acknowledged the tension and leaned into it without defensiveness, the more her confidence grew, and gradually, so did her respect among colleagues. The room no longer felt adversarial but alive, rich with new ideas. Even in her personal relationships, Samira noticed that setting firm boundaries and expressing unpopular opinions led ultimately to deeper trust and healthier dynamics. Her story is proof that embracing discomfort does not lead to chaos or loneliness. It creates space for genuine connection and self-actualization. This capacity is not reserved for the bold few. It belongs to anyone ready to step beyond old habits. You can build resilience with every difficult conversation you choose not to avoid, just as a muscle strengthens through use. The solution offered in this chapter is both practical and empowering. View discomfort as a compass, showing you where your own boundaries, passions, and individuality deserve nurturing. Not only can you survive moments of tension, you can use them as accelerators for your confidence, creativity, and growth. That power is in your hands now, and this chapter will show you how to claim it. The reason embracing uncomfortable opinions is so effective at breaking the cycle of self-doubt and dependence on external validation is rooted in both psychological science and lived human experience. When you habitually avoid discomfort, your brain essentially begins to equate unfamiliar or opposing viewpoints with threat or danger, triggering the same fear circuits as physical pain or social exclusion. This automatic reaction becomes a silent saboteur, convincing you that safety lies in agreement and that self-betrayal is the price of belonging. If left unchecked, these patterns calcify, making any act of speaking up or standing by your convictions seem impossible. But research from Dr. Brené Brown, a leading voice in the study of vulnerability and courage, shows that the antidote to this paralyzing cycle is engagement, not avoidance. It is by allowing ourselves to experience and work through the discomfort of disagreement, rather than retreating or suppressing our views, that we foster true emotional resilience and multiply our capacity for growth. Functional MRI studies corroborate this idea. Brain regions connected to self-reflection and complex reasoning, specifically the anterior cingulate cortex and the prefrontal cortex, become more active when people intentionally entertain and even express opinions that are different or countercultural. Over time, this practice leads to less reactivity, more adaptive emotional regulation, and a greater sense of authentic control in interpersonal situations. What may begin as a racing heart or sweaty palms in the face of disagreement quietly transforms into calm self-assurance as the brain rewires itself to see the unfamiliar not as dangerous, but as a manageable, even desirable experience. These insights are more than theoretical. Consider the transformation of Daniel, an engineer whose social anxiety kept him quiet at both work and home. Raised in a family that prized harmony above all else, Daniel rarely challenged opinions, even when his expertise could have fueled stronger solutions. Eventually, Daniel saw that he was falling behind professionally, his contributions overlooked, his career progression stalling. With the guidance of a mentor who encouraged him to seek out challenging discussions, Daniel decided to risk speaking up at weekly project meetings. The process was agonizing at first. His voice trembled and fear lurked behind every sentence. But surprising things happened over the months. His colleagues, rather than shutting down or ignoring his input, often responded eagerly, even when his suggestions ran against the group's usual direction. Daniel's willingness to express what might have felt uncomfortable raised the team's performance, but more crucially, it began to heal the anxiety that had kept him silent. The unfamiliar sensation of being heard and respected, especially amid disagreement, rewired the old lessons that his value was contingent on remaining agreeable. The urgency here is unmistakable because time spent retreating from discomfort is time spent forfeiting growth. Each avoided conversation, each silent acquiescence, layers on another brick in the wall, separating you from your most resourceful, resilient self. Embracing uncomfortable opinions with intention and curiosity dismantles those barriers from within. It does not just change how you are perceived by others, it restores what is rightly yours, the freedom to exist fully and speak honestly, even when the ground feels shaky. The method works because it does not promise conflict will disappear. Instead, it guards you against losing yourself in the name of false harmony. Imagine choosing, just once, to let discomfort signify growth rather than threat. The first step is to make discomfort your ally in discovering your deeper self. Start with a simple awareness exercise. When you sense tension during a conversation or feel yourself holding back an opinion, pause and notice the physical signals. Tightness in your chest, clammy hands, a quickening heartbeat. Say to yourself, this is simply discomfort, not danger. By labeling the sensation, you separate the feeling from your identity, empowering yourself to navigate through it instead of running away. Instead of shutting down, take one breath slower and deeper than usual, and make the smallest gesture toward expressing your view, even if it's as simple as affirming gently, I see things differently. Over time, these moments of honesty, small as they seem, are bricks laid in the foundation of your self-respect. As you practice, make it your goal to share one genuine thought or perspective every day that feels slightly risky or new. It might mean suggesting a different plan with friends or asking a clarifying question during a work discussion when everyone seems to be nodding along. Celebrate each instance, even a shaky attempt. Acknowledge the small surge of relief or pride you feel afterward. Each step outside your comfort zone is an accomplishment in its own right and makes the next one less intimidating. If you face disagreement, breathe and remind yourself that deepened respect, either from yourself or others, grows when you are real, not merely agreeable. This consistent, courageous practice chips away at any old belief that security lies only in blending in. For a deeper shift, begin keeping a daily reflection journal. At the end of each day, jot down where you chose candor despite discomfort and where you still held back. Be compassionate with yourself. Growth is measured not by perfection but by intention and pattern. After a week, review your journal to spot emerging strengths. Notice the growing confidence in your voice, however small. Identify not only where you spoke up, but also what you learned about yourself in those tense moments. When you can stand firmly in what you believe, even quietly, you give yourself permission to exist fully in every room you enter. It can also help to reframe moments of disagreement as opportunities to deepen connection. Try asking an open-ended question when debates surface. What led you to your perspective? Listening actively, without the goal of instantly defending your position, builds empathy and reduces the social risk you may feel. With every conversation like this, you are not only building courage, but teaching your mind that discomfort is a partner in growth, not a punishment for misstepping. As you close this chapter, feel proud of each stride no matter its size. One voice of courage emboldens another, starting with your own. With these new skills, you are well prepared not just to handle discomfort, but to let it propel you ahead. Next, you'll move past questioning consensus and learn how to challenge the popular narrative itself with confidence and discernment, unearthing even more space for your distinct insights to thrive. If you found clarity, encouragement, or insight here, share your progress or questions below. Subscribe to Mindset Liberation for more tools and inspiration on your journey to living an unfiltered, authentic life. Chapter 4: Question the Popular Narrative. Every day, the world offers a steady stream of stories, rules, and beliefs that most people accept without a second thought. Yet real empowerment and self-trust rarely come from following these well-trodden paths. They emerge when you have the courage to pause and ask, is this true for me? In a society that thrives on consensus and conformity, challenging the popular narrative is one of the most liberating skills you can cultivate. Far from rebellion for its own sake, this practice is a call to engage your intellect, intuition, and lived experience, filtering out noise to find a truth that truly fits your life. The most successful innovators, leaders, and visionaries were not simply better at fitting in. They were relentless in asking hard questions and searching for what rang true beyond the surface. The origins of our trust in popular narratives go back to our earliest social learning. Psychologists explain that humans are hardwired for imitation as a matter of efficiency and belonging. In his book, Influence, social scientist Dr. Robert Cialdini recounts how people instinctively follow the behaviors, attitudes, and even thoughts of the majority. This pattern is so deeply entrenched that studies from Princeton University show nearly 75% of people will openly agree with a group against their own senses and evidence if the group is unanimous. While this mechanism helped our ancestors survive in uncertain environments, it doesn't always serve your greater purpose today. In the online era, this inclination is constantly reinforced by trending hashtags, viral videos, and algorithm-curated content. The pressure to join every cause, accept every fad, and mimic every norm can be overwhelming and exhausting, but it is also an invitation to reclaim your narrative. Real freedom begins with deliberate questioning. Consider the story of Julian, an architecture student whose professors insisted on one tried and tested design philosophy. For weeks, Julian forced his projects into that mold, suppressing his distinct ideas out of fear of rejection. One day, he encountered a work of architecture online that defied every lesson he had been taught, but sparked something within him. Instead of dismissing his inspiration, he started quietly sketching concepts based on his newfound perspective, eventually presenting them nervously for critique. The risk paid off. Not only was his work praised for originality, but he also found fresh excitement for his craft. Julian's breakthrough was not solely in his designs, but in his willingness to challenge accepted truths and claim ownership of the stories driving his work. You have this power too. Right now, you have the choice to shift from passive consumer to active creator of your belief system. Questioning the popular narrative gives you permission to rewrite every assumption your life stands upon, not by defaulting to skepticism, but by continuously seeking what feels purposeful and authentic for you. With each hard question, you build more accurate self-understanding, find more grounded confidence, and gain the energy once lost in anxiety or doubt. Liberate your mind and embrace the rewarding journey of assembling your own worldview, brick by brick. This chapter offers both permission and the path to take that brave, transforming step. Questioning the popular narrative is powerful because it cuts directly to the source of passive conformity and mindless self-doubt, a problem at the core of why so many people feel dissatisfied and lost despite outward success. When you begin to interrogate the stories, beliefs, and assumptions that guide collective behavior, you interrupt an age-old process known by psychologists as normative social influence, the pressure to fit in simply because everyone else is doing it. The mind instinctively seeks belonging through alignment, but this default setting does not consider individual flourishing or authentic purpose. Instead, it quietly blurs your boundaries and dilutes your voice. Compelling scientific research by Dr. Solomon Asch and his line judgment conformity experiments dramatically illustrates this phenomenon. In a controlled setting, close to three-quarters of participants knowingly gave wrong answers to simple questions just to stay in sync with group consensus. These acts go beyond the classroom or laboratory. They govern the bigger and smaller choices you make each day, from the way you dress and communicate to the risks you take and the dreams you either pursue or abandon. Why is questioning so effective and even urgent? Because stopping to examine the foundations behind every popular belief gives you a moment to locate your real motives. Instead of being subject to the whims of outside expectations, you return to a state of agency, able to decide for yourself what merits loyalty, effort, or adaptation. This process does not mean rejecting community or tradition out of spite. Rather, it means developing a resilient filter, one that lets through what enlightens, supports, and uplifts you, while keeping out what drains, belittles, or confines. A well-known case study is that of Dr. Shirley Jackson, an acclaimed physicist whose revolutionary work was consistently challenged and dismissed by the academic structures of her time. Instead of adopting the attitudes and limitations suggested by those narratives, she patiently and rigorously tested prevailing wisdoms against both hard evidence and her own burning curiosity. Dr. Jackson's scientific perseverance was only possible because she never took collective truth at face value. Her career stands as a testament to the transformative outcomes that come from such disciplined questioning. Her work altered industries, but more importantly, it shows how questioning the narrative can root you so firmly in your own convictions that outside voices turn into background noise. Modern neuroscience supports this need for self-directed inquiry. Studies on cognitive dissonance, when your internal beliefs clash with external pressures, demonstrate the psychological toll of living out of step with your true values. Stanford University research shows that when people practice healthy skepticism about enforced norms, areas of the brain linked to personal agency and satisfaction become more active and robust. This isn't just theory, it's measurable change that increases over time. The more you question, the easier it becomes to align your actions with your beliefs, to speak authentically, and crucially, to sustain happiness without compulsively seeking the next crowd-approved goal. Questioning unlocks the momentum of self-renewal and growth. The alternative is stagnation, which is why developing this habit is both effective and necessary if you wish to reclaim your intent, energy, and integrity from narratives that were never truly your own. The practice of questioning the popular narrative begins with intention and simple daily acts of curiosity. Start every morning with a grounding question. What beliefs or assumptions am I carrying right now that might not truly be mine? Write your answer in a journal, even if it's short. This daily check-in serves as a gentle reminder that you have the right to step back from automatic acceptance and weigh things for yourself. Whenever you hear a strong opinion, media message, or even advice from someone close to you, pause for a beat and consciously ask yourself, do I agree with this, or is this simply familiar? Allowing room for this inner pause builds a new habit of mindful discernment rather than reflexive conformity. If you find yourself about to make a decision, large or small, pause and quietly wonder, if no one was watching or expecting, would I still make this choice? That simple act interrupts the bind between your actions and the pressure of popular stories. To take this further, make a list of 3 opinions or facts you've heard commonly repeated within your circles, from career advice to social trends or ideas about success. Spend 5 minutes researching a different point of view or uncovering the story's origin. Sometimes just discovering that an idea comes from outdated research, someone else's personal agenda, or simple repetition is enough to loosen its grip. In conversations, try practicing curiosity, even in disagreement. When someone passionately supports a mainstream belief, instead of immediately accepting or silently resisting, ask an open-ended question. What makes this true for you? Have you ever seen it challenged or disproven? Not only does this approach make dialogue richer and less tense, but it also carves out space for you to practice evaluating ideas aloud, refining your critical voice in a supportive way. Remember, you do not have to take down an entire system of beliefs overnight. Instead, celebrate each micro moment where you notice yourself questioning something that once felt automatic. The first time you decide not to go along with a trend that doesn't resonate or speak up gently in disagreement is a genuine victory. Over time, these small choices add up, and you will notice a remarkable transformation. Decisions come easier, confidence grows quieter but sturdier, and the anxious energy that once swirled around social approval begins to settle. Your journal will reveal both inner clarity and consistent progress, making even the messiest discoveries part of your self-authored story. Establishing this habit will gradually free your attention and creativity for pursuits that matter far more than mere conformity ever could. Your willingness to question is not only a shield, it is also a key. As you rebuild your worldview based on intention and research, you become better equipped for the next challenge, cultivating unwavering personal conviction even when standing alone. Prepare to move from curiosity to confidence in Chapter 5, where you'll find practical wisdom on deepening your commitment to what truly matters, your core values, purpose, and voice. If you've begun noticing and celebrating your own breakthroughs, share your stories and ideas with our evolving Mindset Liberation community. Stay tuned for the next step, and let us know below how you're using questioning as a springboard for real change. Chapter 5. Strengthen Personal Conviction. There is a profound strength available to everyone who learns to anchor themselves in personal conviction, a kind of inner security that cannot be shaken by fleeting trends, outside noise, or the changing winds of opinion. True conviction brings freedom not only from groupthink, but from the exhaustion of endlessly seeking reassurance that you are on the right path. The moment you commit to your principles and root your actions in your core beliefs, you become unshakable in the face of doubt. This commitment does not mean blind stubbornness. Rather, it is about aligning every choice, response, and ambition with the deep truth you carry inside, a compass that keeps you both steady and resilient, regardless of external chaos. The origins of conviction often emerge from personal discovery and repeated introspection. While many admire conviction in others, research by the American Psychological Association highlights that only about 1/3 of adults describe themselves as firmly guided by their own values when making big decisions. What happens to everyone else? Without an internal anchor, people drift, swayed one direction by outside demands, another direction by expected reward, and often lost somewhere in the middle. The cost of this indecisiveness is real and cumulative. Anxiety grows in the presence of uncertainty, confidence evaporates, and a person's deepest interests get set aside in favor of what feels good enough for now. It is no wonder that surveys consistently find those who report the greatest life satisfaction are not the ones who fit in perfectly, but those who can name and stand by their most meaningful values, even in small daily matters. Expert voices in psychology emphasize that conviction is not inborn, but cultivated through courageous practice. Dr. Angela Duckworth, known for her work on grit and perseverance, describes conviction as a blend of self-knowledge and patient, deliberate action. It comes from examining your beliefs, refining your motivations through real adversity, and refusing to abandon your principles when they are tested. Conviction is the muscle that strengthens each time you say no to what is wrong for you, or insist on yes to experiences that align with your spirit, no matter who approves or resists. Jamil's story is a testament to this process. As an aspiring entrepreneur, Jamil was repeatedly told his unconventional idea would surely fail. Despite plentiful advice to just do what works and constant skepticism, he chose to conduct months of painstaking research and quietly build his project according to his own vision. When obstacles arrived, instead of retreating, his resolve deepened, and in time, his unique approach became his business's defining edge. More than the outcome, it was Jamil's unwavering dedication to a principle larger than fleeting approval that transformed him from tentative to unstoppable. The process of strengthening your personal conviction is not granted all at once, but built through many moments of self-honesty and aligned action. The encouraging truth is that you have everything within you needed to cultivate this remarkable power. As you commit to tuning out distractions and championing your deepest values, you reclaim a kind of stability that far outlasts even the loudest opinions. In doing so, you come home to yourself, confident, centered, and truly free. The method of strengthening personal conviction is uniquely powerful because it breaks the cycle of wavering indecision and leaves no room for paralysis by analysis or identity confusion. Standing firm in your beliefs gives your actions coherence, removes the need for repeated justification, and delivers a newfound sense of calm even in the face of resistance or setbacks. Research conducted by the University of Chicago shows that people who routinely clarify their personal values enjoy both greater mental resilience and higher overall life satisfaction, regardless of the approval or opinions of others. When you align your behavior with your core principles, the brain's reward system responds distinctly. Dopamine and oxytocin levels rise, generating feelings of well-being and reinforcing the very habit of conviction. This pattern interrupts cycles of external validation or peer influence by offering its own deeper reward, a self-assurance that multiplies each time you hold true to yourself, even quietly. From a psychological perspective, investing in personal conviction offers a profound buffer against stress. In a landmark study, Dr. Shelley Taylor and her colleagues discovered that individuals who could concretely describe their guiding principles and stick to them under pressure exhibited significantly lower cortisol levels, the hormone linked to chronic stress, during difficult decision-making. Their focus and sense of purpose acted like armor, protecting against the anxiety and emotional wear that so often drains people who are forever uncertain, adapting themselves to every changing wind of opinion. In other words, strong conviction is not only a tool for success but a shield for mental health, reducing the toxic effects of self-doubt and outside scrutiny. The story of Rosa, a high school teacher in a challenging urban school district, captures exactly why this method is so effective. Early in her career, Rosa struggled because she wanted to be liked by students and respected by colleagues. She found herself acquiescing, lowering academic standards here, avoiding difficult conversations there, herself adrift in the shifting demands of others. Conflict in the classroom increased, and her confidence plummeted. Out of desperation, Rosa committed to clarifying her own philosophy as an educator. She spent evenings journaling her beliefs about respect, rigor, compassion, and honesty. Gradually, she began aligning her responses and lesson plans around these values, even when it meant holding her ground during heated staff meetings or while facing resistance from her students. The school year finished stronger than any before, not just because student performance improved, but because Rosa found serenity even on the hardest days. In reflecting back, she explained that strengthening her teaching conviction became the antidote to burnout and restored her to a sense of meaning. This method's urgency is undeniable. Each day spent without clear conviction is a day exposed to every negative current in the environment: the loud opinion in a social feed, the pressure of a colleague's doubts, the ever-present question, "Am I doing enough?" Waiting leaves space for anxiety to ferment and for values to erode. By deliberately clarifying and acting from conviction, you reclaim your energy and drive from every outside distraction and stand protected against forces that would otherwise chip away at your purpose. The reward of consistency in your beliefs is a legacy, a character that stands firm no matter how loud the world becomes, and a peace that cannot easily be stolen. Building personal conviction is most effective when approached with practical intention and steady, small practices. Begin by taking 10 quiet minutes to reflect on the values that feel most important to you. These could be words or phrases that naturally surface, such as honesty, courage, creativity, compassion, or justice. Write them down, not as an exhaustive manifesto, but as a living, breathing foundation. To solidify the connection, choose one value for the week and look for opportunities each day to put it into independent action. It might mean speaking up kindly but firmly when you witness unfairness, refusing a request that violates your sense of balance, or following through on a creative idea solely because it feels true to your core. Each time you honor your chosen value, take a moment to acknowledge it. Notice the sense of inner alignment and the quiet satisfaction that follows, no matter how modest the step. Next, use your journal or phone to create a conviction tracker. At the end of the day, record when you acted from your principles and when you were pulled off course by outside influence or fear. The purpose is not to tally mistakes, but to bring wisdom and compassion to your growth. After a few days, patterns will emerge, highlighting both your strengths and where you struggle under external pressure. Use this information to refine your strategy, celebrating progress rather than perfection. To deepen this practice, choose one situation each week where you might normally yield to others' urgencies, a work meeting, a family discussion, a personal project, and set the intention to stay grounded in your chosen value throughout. Before you engage, take a moment to remember your core belief and consciously decide to respond in a way that is loyal to it, regardless of outcome. Occasionally, sustaining conviction requires gentle reminders. Place visual cues around your environment, a note card with your value displayed on your desk, an inspirational line as your phone wallpaper, or a token you can hold in your pocket when needed. During high-pressure moments, use these cues as anchors, helping you recall that you possess a solid foundation. It can also help to regularly recite an affirmation tailored to your values, such as, "I lead with integrity even when it is difficult," or "My courage in following my principles is stronger than any fear of disapproval." This conscious affirmation builds psychological resilience and strengthens the neural pathways linked to self-assurance over time. The real win comes from living your conviction in small daily ways, over waiting for grand moments to prove yourself. If at any point you slip or feel the urge to revert, remind yourself that learning conviction is itself a journey. Each honest moment, even in struggle, builds your foundation. Over weeks, making decisions from your deepest principles won't just become easier. It will feel natural, with less internal debate and more quiet certainty. This newfound inner steadiness frees your mind for deeper creativity, richer relationships, and stronger courage as you face life's big tests. The next chapter will teach you how to bring this conviction into your words and actions, cultivating a kind of quiet power that speaks even before you have to say anything. Get ready to discover how your presence can command respect and influence by harnessing your strengthened values. As always, if these exercises have sparked changes or insights, share your thoughts or victories below, and stay connected with Mindset Liberation for your ongoing journey toward freedom and self-mastery. Chapter 6. Speak with quiet power. True influence is not always loud. In fact, some of the most effective leaders and most deeply trusted figures make their greatest impact without raising their voices at all. There is remarkable strength in speaking with quiet power, a steadiness that commands attention, respect, and thoughtful action not through volume, but through presence, intention, and unwavering authenticity. This form of communication draws people in, leaving a lasting impression precisely because it is rare in a world addicted to noise and bravado. The ability to speak with quiet power transforms every interaction, allowing your words, gestures, and even silences to become a source of real authority and inspiration. The origins of speaking with quiet power can often be traced to deep self-assurance and clarity of purpose. Unlike assertiveness, which sometimes gets mistaken for aggression, quiet power is rooted in self-mastery. Psychologist Dr. Susan Cain, author of Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, notes that those who develop quiet power often have a high level of internal confidence and self-containment. Her research and similar studies at Harvard Business School show that leaders who harness this skill foster more loyal, creative, and proactive teams. In fact, a global survey on workplace communication revealed that employees overwhelmingly feel more respected and motivated when guidance and feedback are delivered with calm certainty, rather than displays of dominance. The positive results of speaking with this type of presence are not limited to the office. Quiet power has far-reaching impact on friendships, families, and even in navigating disagreements and conflict. These ideas are mirrored in everyday life. Consider Emily, who was naturally reserved but learned to lean into her quiet attributes rather than apologizing for them. In group meetings, she used to feel she was overlooked or too timid to be recognized. Over time, she realized that when she waited for the right moment and spoke with intention, people began to really listen. Her few, well-chosen words carried further because she was not competing for attention. She was making her point with conviction and poise. Soon, Emily was asked to lead sensitive projects. Others sought her perspective not just for her expertise, but also for the measured, calming influence she brought into every room. This is not an isolated example. Countless individuals find, once they stop measuring effectiveness by the decibel level and start focusing on clarity, alignment, and emotional steadiness, that their positive impact actually increases. You have that capacity within you. The ability to speak with quiet power is not something you either have or you don't. It is learned, practiced, and grown over time, refined with each conscious choice to prioritize depth over display. This way of communicating takes you beyond the need for constant explanation or defense. It reassures both you and those around you that inner calm and clear intent are more memorable and ultimately more influential than any attempt to force others into agreement. With practice, your presence will begin speaking on your behalf even before you utter a word, and your life will unfold with more satisfaction because your voice carries the weight of real, quiet power. There is immense effectiveness in speaking with quiet power precisely because it harnesses two essential human responses: the instinctive attention people give to confidence and the psychological comfort found in calm, measured presence. When you communicate with quiet power, your steadiness acts as an anchor for those around you, diffusing tensions and inviting thoughtful participation instead of defensiveness or escalation. The roots of this effectiveness are found not just in anecdotal leadership tales, but in rigorous behavioral research. Studies by the University of California, Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center, highlight that individuals who relay their perspectives calmly, pausing and choosing words with care, create greater trust and more open dialogue than those who rely on domination or volume. The brain, sensing an absence of aggression, naturally lowers defenses, which encourages deeper listening and more meaningful exchange. This phenomenon has been called the contagion of composure, and the scientific consensus is clear. People are far more receptive, compassionate, and creative when guided by voices that neither rush nor demand. Real-life transformation makes this lesson vivid. Consider the story of Ben, a technical manager whose naturally soft tone was misunderstood as weakness in his early years on the job. He struggled with the idea that in order to be influential, he needed to mimic the loudest voices in the company. Eventually, after experiencing repeated burnout and ongoing conflict with his team, Ben turned to a communication coach. Together, they reframed his style, helping him develop habits of intentional silence before responding in meetings, lowering his voice as discussions grew heated, and focusing his attention on precise, present-moment listening. At first, his transformation met with skepticism. Some colleagues even mistook his calm for indifference. But as Ben persisted, others noticed that he never lost his cool, never engaged in arguments, and consistently produced considered, innovative solutions. Gradually, the dynamic in his department shifted. Instead of noisy sparring, meetings became streamlined, colleagues deferred to his guidance, and projects moved forward with less resistance. Within 2 years, Ben's department had the highest retention rate in the organization. He was promoted not for overpowering anyone, but for inspiring trustworthy cooperation and resolution by example. Proof that quiet power is far from passive. It exerts an active influence that resonates long after the conversation ends. Sociolinguistic research further demonstrates that audiences recall information better when the speaker uses slower, deliberate phrasing and confident pauses rather than constant, forceful talking. Scientists call this signal-to-noise ratio. Listeners are drawn to the meaningful, confident signals that cut through a world overloaded with digital and verbal distraction. In families as well, children and partners alike respond more positively to instructions and feedback delivered with warmth and steady tempo. It diffuses the unconscious defense systems activated by harshness or urgency, allowing for more genuine connection and growth. The urgency here is real, because if you continue to rely on blunt assertion or people-pleasing chatter, your true meaning risks being lost or misunderstood entirely. Every time you choose quality over noise and prioritize intent over instant reaction, you build a substance behind your presence that no false confidence can replace. This is what elevates communication from a mere exchange of words to a true instrument of respect, leadership, and enduring impact, qualities the world needs now more than ever. Developing the ability to speak with quiet power is both an art and a practice, one that can be strengthened by deliberate, practical steps in your everyday communication. The journey begins with mastering presence. Each morning, before your day's first interaction, take 2 minutes to breathe deeply and visualize yourself navigating a key conversation with calm and purpose. Throughout the day, remind yourself to pause before responding, in meetings, with family, or in casual conversation. Even a pause of 3 seconds can allow your thoughts to settle, making your eventual words more intentional and concise. Notice how the energy in the room often shifts as soon as you bring a moment of stillness. This is the first sign of your quiet power beginning to influence the environment around you. As you continue, focus on selecting your words with care rather than aiming for the longest or loudest contribution. Practice expressing your main point in just 1 or 2 clear, well-chosen sentences. If you tend to rush or fill silences with unnecessary explanation, intentionally allow a gentle space after you finish speaking. Let your statement breathe. Others may lean in to listen more closely, and you may find people respond more thoughtfully. You can reinforce this habit with a simple daily exercise. Once per day, rehearse stating a belief or giving feedback to yourself in front of a mirror using calm, unhurried sentences. Your reflection serves as a feedback loop, helping you refine tone and body language until you see and hear the confidence you hope to convey. Another key technique is to anchor your communication with supportive body language. Keep your shoulders relaxed, make eye contact that is steady but warm, and use intentional gestures. Avoid unnecessary fidgeting or defensive postures. Rather, let your body match the ease in your voice. A useful practice is to notice those moments when an emotional reaction, nervousness, anger, anxiety, threatens to take over. Instead of withdrawing or overcompensating, quietly ground yourself by pressing your feet into the floor and unclenching your jaw, flashing a small, genuine smile if appropriate. In this way, you signal both to yourself and to others that composure remains within your grasp. To gain immediate small wins, at the end of each day, reflect on one interaction where you consciously practiced speaking with quiet power. It might be as simple as holding your ground calmly during a disagreement, or choosing to express genuine appreciation without rushing. Record this in your journal. Each entry, however modest, marks a victory over your old communication habits. When you see how often you are able to choose presence and poise, confidence grows naturally, encouraging you to apply the skill in even bigger situations. As you practice, your reputation will evolve. Others will sense your steadiness, and soon people will look to you not just for answers, but for reassurance and clarity. The most powerful voices are often the least expected. Their impact comes from consistency and authenticity, not from drama and noise. With these new skills, you are now ready to embody your convictions in leadership and life. The next chapter will guide you in leading without needing validation, teaching you how real authority is built from the inside out. If today's techniques gave you a boost or breakthrough, please share your victories or thoughts below, and subscribe to Mindset Liberation to stay inspired as we continue this empowering journey together. Chapter 7. Lead without validation. True leadership is not built on applause, popularity, or constant affirmation. It is anchored in a refusal to need validation from others. To lead without validation is to guide from your own inner purpose, drawing power from your values and vision rather than from external reward. This approach frees you from the emotional roller coaster of praise and criticism, allowing focus, courage, and lasting impact to emerge. Many believe that respect and influence are won only by meeting everyone's expectations, but genuine leaders are remembered not for chasing consensus, but for standing firm in moments when popularity wavers. The moment you decide to measure your progress by your standards rather than public opinion is the moment your influence becomes truly transformational. The origins of seeking validation trace deep into the human desire for acceptance. In collaborative environments or social hierarchies, it often seems logical, even necessary, to win approval before taking action or voicing new ideas. Yet, studies from Harvard Business Review reveal an unexpected drawback. More than 65% of participants reported that their performance suffered when they became preoccupied with receiving recognition or fearing disapproval. Their creativity, initiative, and decision-making were stifled, not empowered, by this dependence on external validation. What may seem at first like collaborative sensitivity instead becomes a subtle trap, as energy is rerouted toward the management of perception rather than achieving real goals or embodying authentic leadership. The drive for validation also breeds insecurity and burnout, especially in fast-moving workplaces where public opinion changes quickly and is rarely unanimous. Expert voices confirm that resilient, impactful leaders break free precisely at the point where they accept the possibility of disapproval. Dr. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset found that people who base their choices on intrinsic motivation, acting from a belief in improvement and self-alignment, build greater respect, accountability, and results in their organizations. This phenomenon is not confined to formal management. It shows up in every area of life where someone steps forward to set a boundary, introduce change, or support a principle without waiting for applause. Consider Marina, an experienced team leader often overlooked for promotion because she didn't play office politics. When a challenging new project threatened her department's stability, she chose to focus on priorities and values rather than courting popular support. By staying with tough decisions in the absence of accolades, she maintained her team's trust and loyalty, eventually rising into an executive role. Marina's reputation was built by her ability to serve the work itself, unmoved by shifting moods or passing approval. The freedom to lead without validation is available to anyone, not just to a chosen or charismatic few. When you recognize that your greatest authority comes from your willingness to stay loyal to your mission regardless of how it might initially be received, you slip the chains of expectation and open the door for genuine change, starting within yourself and seeding out into every sphere you touch. The more you practice, the more you discover leadership's truest reward, the knowledge that your path is worthy, even when admired in silence. Leading without validation is effective because it dismantles the invisible walls that dependence on external approval creates, freeing you to act with clarity, courage, and long-term vision. Most people underestimate how much time and emotional energy is wasted in the covert search for affirmation, anticipating applause, avoiding dissent, and second-guessing every bold step. When a leader requires validation, even unconsciously, they risk narrowing their focus, suppressing innovation, and diluting decision-making with second-hand anxiety. Neuroscience research from the University of Michigan shows that our brains react to social disapproval or isolation as acutely as physical pain, often causing us to abandon valuable ideas prematurely in pursuit of relief from discomfort. This neurological wiring, while meant to safeguard social bonds, often becomes a chain that silences true leadership potential when left unexamined. However, when leaders pivot to an internal compass, anchoring their motivation in meaningful goals and personal standards, they begin to circumvent the limits set by crowd reaction. This inner orientation, rather than leading to stubborn arrogance, instead breeds a remarkable resilience and sense of fulfillment. Clinical psychologist Dr. Russ Harris, renowned for his work in acceptance and commitment therapy, has demonstrated through numerous studies that personal effectiveness and satisfaction dramatically increase when leadership actions flow from purpose and value clarity, rather than from applause or fear. Not only do these leaders endure criticism with composure, but they crowd out the distracting self-consciousness that undercuts firm direction. As a result, such leaders experience less burnout and are far more likely to generate strong followership and lasting change. The real story of David, a nonprofit founder, drives these lessons home. In the early years of his organization, David clung to community approval, adapting proposals, shifting missions, and burning out from endless committee appeasement. Growth stalled, confusion festered in the ranks, and David felt consumed by a vague sense of inadequacy, despite his best efforts. With the arrival of a trusted mentor, David faced a turning point. He began weekly reflection sessions, examining not what the group wanted, but what he believed was truly necessary for their goals. Consciously, he risked pursuing a funding model some labeled unrealistic, standing firm even as skepticism mounted. Over time, as the organization's initiatives finally took root and produced striking results, respect for David's vision grew, but more importantly, he had already found unwavering acceptance within himself. The applause, when it arrived, felt secondary to the deep satisfaction and peace that he had led with integrity. The urgency to master this shift cannot be overstated. The more a person waits for validation, the more their actions morph into crowd-pleasing rather than leading. At a time when complexity and speed can leave a leader feeling exposed or critiqued at every turn, clarity of self-directed purpose is both shield and compass. It prevents the slow erosion of faith in your cause and creates space for reliable, enduring impact. Those who learn to lead without validation discover they become bolder and more respected, not because they never face disagreement, but because their work stands even without applause. This is the ground from which authentic influence grows, and it is vital for anyone striving to break free from the tyranny of approval. Stepping into a style of leadership that does not crave validation from others can seem daunting, but it begins with small, intentional shifts in mindset and practice. Start by clarifying your standards for success. Write down what accomplishment means to you in your current role, project, or personal goal. Do not use others' metrics. Focus on what progress, impact, or fulfillment truly look like in your eyes. This becomes your map, a stabilizing guide when the winds of external opinion try to force you off course. Each morning, read through these personal standards before entering any situation where leadership or autonomy might be required. This simple ritual is a way of anchoring yourself before the tide of potential approval or criticism rises. The next practice involves mindful self-observation. Throughout the day, pay attention to moments when you sense yourself hesitating out of fear of disapproval or driven by hope for applause. When you notice such a trigger, pause and ask yourself, if no one ever saw or applauded this, would my choice be the same? If the answer remains yes, move forward without delay. If you feel hesitation, gently remind yourself that real transformation almost always begins in discomfort, not certainty. This act of questioning, performed daily, cultivates an inner reference point that strengthens each time you follow it. A highly effective technique is the inner validation briefing. Each day after making a decision or taking a stand, give yourself a few minutes to review what you did and why, completely independent of how others responded. Offer yourself encouragement, noting when you honored your goals or principles. For example, acknowledge, "Today I gave my honest feedback even though it was unpopular," or "I maintained the project's direction because I believed it was ultimately best, not because everyone agreed." Small internal celebrations of self-directed leadership build resilience and confidence from the inside out. Challenge yourself weekly to make one decision or take one action that risks not being noticed or praised. This may be as minor as proposing a new idea in a group or standing by a colleague facing criticism, or it may mean pushing a difficult issue forward without guarantees of group support. By choosing the action for its inherent importance, not as a tool to elicit approval, you create a habit of substantive leadership. Document these actions, however small, in a personal integrity log. Over time, you'll see a trail of choices made for the right reasons, reinforcing the truth that your authority comes from your consistency and authenticity, not the volume of applause you receive. As you develop this practice, you'll likely experience the freedom and peace that arise from no longer measuring yourself by external reactions. You will also notice that others may respect or follow you more closely, not simply because you're unbothered by validation, but because your presence inspires confidence and direction. Without the invisible leash of constant affirmation, creativity, decisiveness, and vision expand. With each step, let your milestones be internal. Satisfaction at the mission accomplished, the standard upheld, the courage displayed in silence as much as in the spotlight. This approach quietly but powerfully changes how you move through life, leading from within and inspiring true followership among all who cross your path. As you reach the end of this journey, reflect on the powerful truths explored throughout this book. You have learned how to silence the endless noise of public opinion and rediscover the steady presence of your own voice. From hearing your inner wisdom and breaking the hold of approval seeking, to taking bold stands on uncomfortable opinions, questioning accepted narratives, building unwavering conviction, and speaking with quiet power, every chapter has drawn you further from the tyranny of external validation and closer to authentic, self-guided freedom. Most importantly, you now have practical strategies for leading and living without needing constant affirmation, so your actions can be grounded in purpose, courage, and clarity. Thank you for taking the time to invest in your growth with us today. If you found insight, encouragement, or a spark of change here, please remember to like the video, share your thoughts or experiences in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Stay connected with Mindset Liberation for ongoing support and more tools that empower you to live, love, and lead on your own terms.